Are companies actually abandoning DEI, or are they just calling it something else? Let's talk about stealth DEI and explore whether this shift is actually happening or not. Of course, by DEI, I mean diversity, equity, and inclusion. As you may have seen, the current US president and his administration seem to be against the idea of DEI in the workplace. And while this is happening, there are companies that seem to be just completely bowing to the political pressure of the US president and his administration. And then there are also companies that are standing firm by their values. But then there seem to be companies that are doing this stealth DEI, as I like to call it. So I wanted to explore whether this shift is actually happening and why it's important to keep abreast of it. Now, if you're watching this and you're a freelancer or individual consultant or a small business owner or entrepreneur of a small company, and you're thinking, what's this got to do with me? Only large brands, large companies are being targeted. Well, the thing is, if your business is providing a product or service to one of these larger companies, understanding these shifts and the political pressures would help you navigate what's currently going on in the business world. By that, I mean, if you understand what's going on, then you're better positioned to communicate your value in a way that aligns with your clients' values and priorities. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but I am a woman and a person of a culturally diverse background. So I'm sure you can work out where I personally stand on this matter. But to be honest, I would need a much longer video to be able to go on a personal rant right now. For now, I just like to keep this short and helpful, and potentially we could explore this area more in depth down the line. Okay, so what do I even mean by stealth DEI? Now, first, I want to put this disclaimer that I personally haven't seen anyone else use it, but I don't want to be accused of plagiarism down the line. So if anyone does know anyone else that is referring to this term, please do let me know, especially if it was posted before me. Okay, so what do I mean by it? Well, I guess from what I've been observing, there are certain companies who are trying to tread very carefully on the tightrope of trying to please those who are putting on their political pressure, but then also try to stay true to their values for their other stakeholders, like their employees and customers and the community in which they operate at large. And what seems to be happening, though I think we're at the very beginnings of this, so I only have found a few examples so far, but what seems to be happening is that they're trying to do that, balance both. So what they're doing is not necessarily completely letting go of those priorities or initiatives, but they're somehow rebranding or renaming it whilst still achieving the same thing. But the rebrand or renaming, or whatever term you want to use for the rejigging, they are using terms that are less politically charged so that they won't be targeted, particularly by the current US administration. So what are some examples of this in terms of the terms being used? Well, I've seen already terms being thrown around like workplace belonging, inclusive leadership, and I'm thinking, so isn't that really just another way of saying diversity, equity, and inclusion without saying those exact words so that they're not targeted by naming something by that acronym? And I guess, or I wonder, if this is a way for them to reduce their risks in terms of the political pressures while still maintaining their initiatives to support diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. All right, first of all, what are some examples of each of these? Well, so the ones that I said seem to be bowing to the political pressure, caving in, and this has been publicly announced, so I'm not just making assumptions here, but for example, big tech companies such as Meta, Amazon, and Google have all publicly announced that they're rolling back their DEI policies and initiatives. But then on the other side, there are, as I've mentioned, those companies that are really staying firm and true to their values. and not rolling back on their DEI policies and initiatives. There are many, but I think the most prominent in the last few days are the first one that comes to mind is Apple, because they actually turned down a shareholder proposal to roll back the DEI policies. And that shareholder vote was actually 98 to 2%. So 98% of shareholders voted to keep the company's DEI policies and initiatives. One of the earliest to let their values be known was Costco, I believe. There are other examples, for example, Ben & Jerry's, which was to be expected. The fact that it is, I believe, the largest B Corp, and all the way to Delta Airlines and JP Morgan Chase, I believe. So many different industries. Now, as for this grey area that I'm calling stealth DEI, one example that we're seeing play out in real time is Disney. So from what I understand from what's been announced publicly is that they're not necessarily closing down or rolling back their DEI initiatives or policies, but they seem to be going through some sort of restructure and renaming of programs and initiatives. So the way they're explaining it is that they are making changes to their corporate culture to more closely align with their, let me check, business goals and company values. It's a direct quote apparently from the chief HR officer, I believe, of Disney. So, for example, if you look at the AXIOS article that I'll share somewhere here, they've explored this quite well. But I'm looking at it now, and an example of this rebranding, is, so Disney has said that it's going to replace its diversity and inclusion performance factor that it used to use to evaluate executive compensation with a new talent strategy. The thing is, this new talent strategy includes concepts from its old diversity and inclusion factor. So this is what I mean about, is there some stealth DEI happening here? And there's more to it than that, but as I said, you can look it up. It's publicly been reported on in, for example, Axios, Forbes, Variety, I believe. There are multiple articles about this. Another one is PepsiCo. So from what I understand, as reported by Reuters, let's have a look. And again, I'll share this somewhere. Its chief DEI officer is being moved to a broader role that will be looking into associate engagement and leadership development. But according to the announcement that's being reported by Reuters, they will continue to work on the A Space to Be You program. And they're going to include a new inclusion for growth strategy. Another way of saying DEI, stealth. So again, why are companies doing this? Well, it seems they don't want to alienate their stakeholders, as I said, their employees, their customers, community at large, whilst also trying not to be targeted by the US administration and the political pressures that they're putting these companies under. And why don't they want to alienate their stakeholders? Well, there are data-backed reasons why diverse teams perform better. And this has been well researched and well reported on, so I'm not going to go into it again and make a long video out of that. I'm sure you can look it up. I don't feel the need to have to make that case. I don't feel that we should have to keep making that case. I'm tired, everyone's tired. And there are obvious real-world risks of abandoning DEI initiatives completely. From a company perspective, the obvious reputational damage, employee disengagement, and then the power of the customer boycotting. Okay, so what does this all mean? My prediction is that DEI won't disappear, despite the US president and his administration wanting it to, but I do think it's going to evolve. So basically, at the end of the day, what I think brands should do is not just cave into whatever pressures they're under or appease whichever stakeholders they're trying to appease. What I think is important is that they stay true and authentic to the mission and values and purpose that they've stated for their organization. whatever that means to them and however that will look like for them. So the goal should be meaningful inclusion. I've seen failures on both ends of the spectrum, from the superficial side of greenwashing and impact washing to superficially also rolling back DEI initiatives because they're trying to appease, the political pressure. Neither ends of that extreme really helps a brand. I think this is something that we're going to see continue to play out in different ways. I think it's still early days. So I think this idea of even stealth DEI is going to evolve. So this video I don't think is the right time and place for a long in-depth exploration of, but I just wanted to touch on it for now. So what do you think? Do you think brands should be more upfront about their commitment to diversity, equity and inclusion? Comment below and let's take this discussion further, because I think it's a really important conversation. A conversation that needs to be had. And I do think we're going to keep exploring this as this administration goes on. Till the next video.